Hi, I'm Adam,
This is Kevin.
and we are Tech Guys Who Invest. This is the place for business people and investors to learn all about investing. We offer a fresh perspective on what it's like to have a day job while investing, and we share lessons learned on our investing journey. Our vision is to educate and entertain you while adding tons of value to your daily commute. Welcome to our show.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Tech Guys Who Invest podcast, where each week we teach you how to invest wisely and safely. Now, this episode is going to be all about raw land. That's right. We're talking about land that is barren, that is out in the middle of nowhere. But you know what? People still want it. And there's also land that people are going to use to develop. But I don't want to spoil it too much for you. We're speaking with Mark, the Land Geek, also known as Mark Podolsky. And I want to give you a little bit of information about Mark, our guest. Armed with $3,000, gut-wrenching fear, and absolutely no real estate experience, Mark bought his first few parcels of raw land in 2001. Today, Mark is the author of Dirt Rich, the ultimate guide to helping you build a passive income, and owner of Frontier Properties, a very reputable, successful land investing company, and has been buying and selling land full-time since 2001. By focusing on working smart, not hard, he has completed over 5,500 land deals with an average ROI of over 300% on cash flips and over 1,000% on the deals he sells with financing terms. Prior to his land investing success, Mark had a high-stress, soulless corporate job and felt trapped in a state of solo economic dependency. Escaping solo economic dependency changed Mark's life in so many positive ways that he decided to teach, coach, and mentor others to help them achieve their financial goals. Even though Mark invests a lot of his time helping others, he stays actively involved in running his land investing business and is dedicated to teaching the most current and relevant real-world land investing methods to his students. So you are going to learn all about raw land today and how you can invest in it for great returns, as Mark has proven in his success. So without further ado, here's the episode on raw land.
This episode of Tech Guys Who Invest is brought to you by Dreamstone Investments. Dreamstone is a multifamily real estate operator based in Atlanta, Georgia, and Tampa, Florida. Dreamstone specializes in finding and acquiring off-market value-add deals across the southeastern part of the U.S. Dreamstone creates immense value by ensuring the tenants are treated like residents and by adding the Dreamstone touch to each of our communities. To schedule a call to find out more about their current offerings and to see how you can partner with them, please send an email to info@dreamstoneinvest.com. You can also check out their website at dreamstoneinvest.com.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Tech Guys Who Invest podcast. Today, we're talking all about land with Mark, the Land Geek. Welcome, Mark.
Kevin, Adam, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks. We're super excited to have you on the show and talk about land investing, something we don't get to talk about that often. But yeah, it's really fascinating to us.
Yeah, you are not going to find a more boring niche to talk about than raw land. And I always joke because like people are like, is it going to be competitive in raw land? I'm like, HGTV, the DIY network, you're never going to see me on Flip This Land. The before picture is raw land. The after picture is raw land. We shuffle paper and make money. That's it.
Nice. Well, that you are kind of doing a good segue here into my first question for you. And that really is what does it mean to invest in land? What does that look like?
Let's have some fun. Okay.
Awesome. Please.
I'm going to pretend you guys are partners in Tampa Bay, Florida, where you're located, right?
Yep.
Right.
And unfortunately, you guys bought 10 acres in Texas. And for some reason, when I go to the county treasurer or the assessor, I see, Kevin and Adam owed $200 in back taxes on their 10-acre parcel in Texas. Well, you guys are advertising two important things to me. Number one, you have no emotional attachment to that raw land. You're in Florida, the property's in Texas. And number two, you're distressed financially in some weird way. Because when we don't pay our property taxes, we don't value that land in the same way we value other things. When we don't pay for things, we don't value them in the same way. So as a result, the county treasurer keeps sending you guys notices. Kevin, Adam, you don't pay these property taxes, you're going to lose this property to a tax deed or a tax lien investor. So all I'm going to do is look at the comparable sales on your 10-acre parcel for the last 12 to 18 months. I'm going to take the lowest comparable sale. I'm going to divide by 4. That's going to give me what Warren Buffett would call a 300% margin of safety. So I'm going to send you guys an actual offer for your 10 acres. So let's pretend the lowest comp's 10 grand. I'm going to send you an offer for $2,500. Now you guys accept, because for you, $2,500 is better than nothing. In reality, 3 to 5% of people accept my quote unquote top dollar offer. Now, after you accept it, I've got to go through some due diligence or in-depth research. I got to confirm you guys still own the property. I got to confirm back taxes are only $200. I got to make sure there's been no breaks in the chain of title. There's no liens or encumbrances, clouding title. There's something compelling about the property. There's legal access. I've got this whole big checklist, which of course, because I'm ambitiously lazy, I outsource my team in the Philippines. They're connected to an American title company. And for about $11, I get a whole due diligence report. Now, if we're going to spend more than $5,000 on that transaction, I'd go through an American title company. If I was feeling really cheap, I might just hire an abstractor, which is less than a title company, and not take any risk. But because it's only $2,500, I'll take a little risk, have my team do it, everything checks out, and then I'm going to sell this property 30 days or less and make a cash flow like a rental home. And I have a built-in best buyer. Do you guys know who it is?
No.
No guesses?
The federal government?
No. Adam, nothing?
I'm stumped. I got nothing, man. My dog.
All right. It's the neighbors. So I'm going to send out neighbor letters saying, hey, here's your opportunity. Protect your privacy, protect your view. Know your neighbor. So oftentimes the neighbors will buy it. If they pass, I'll go to my buyers list. My buyers list passes. I go to a little website you guys may have heard of. It's called Craigslist. It's the 10th most trafficked website in the United States. I'll go to an even smaller one. I know Kevin's heard of this. Adam, maybe not. But Adam, it's called Facebook. There's like 1 billion people on there. And I'll go to the marketplace and the groups. And then I'll go to the lands, landmodo.com, landsofamerica.com, landandfarm.com, landflip.com, landhub.com. These are all these places, platforms where people buy and sell raw land. But the way that I'm going to sell it is where the magic happens. I'm going to make it irresistible. So I'm going to owner finance it. So I'm going to ask my potential buyer to make a $2,500 down payment to control this 10 acres. And then I'll make it a car payment. Let's say $449 a month, 9% interest over the next 84 months. So it's a one-time sale. I try to get my money out on the down. I might go 6 to 10 months out. And then I'm going to get $449 a month of passive income, no renters, no rehabs, no renovations, no rodents. And because I'm not dealing with a tenant, I'm exempt from Dodd-Frank, RESPA, and the SAFE Act, all this onerous real estate legislation. So the game that we play is, can we create enough of these land notes where our passive income exceeds our fixed expenses? And now we're working because we want to, not because we have to.
Nice. All right. That passive cash flow is something we love on this show.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. And you're talking notes, and that's my niche. So I'm going to dive into that in a little bit. But when it comes to investing in land, you mentioned a couple of those advantages. Can you expand upon them?
Sure. So you're talking about something that is not physical, right? I've never got a call at 3 a.m. saying my land is leaking. Can you come by and fix it? So it's essentially just a piece of raw land. It's nothing to maintain, nothing to protect, nothing to destroy, right? In the places that we buy, it's only limited by their imagination. There's typically no restrictions. So you've got this asset that literally lasts forever. It's a generational asset. You've got a massive market and very few people doing it. In fact, we could have 1 million people in this niche. You, me, 1 million people will all run out of money before we run out of deal flow, because there's so much raw land in this country and there's a lust for land in this country. So I've done this over 6,000 times now since 2001, and I absolutely love it.
Wow. Mark, are there disadvantages to investing in land?
There's one huge disadvantage to investing in land compared to every other niche in real estate. Do you guys know what it is?
I can't wait to hear it.
It's the 4 quadrants, and we're missing a quadrant from Robert Kiyosaki. Damn you, Kiyosaki! It's the tax advantages. Since land lasts forever, you can't depreciate it. So the way that we get around the tax issue is that you can use something like a qualified retirement plan with check writing privileges, with a Roth or a SEP IRA that grows tax deferred or tax free in the land investing niche, because our average margin is 300 to 1,000%. So that's the way to kind of get around it. We have a lot of other clients that use something called an infinite banking concept. So they'll just borrow and they'll be their own bank, and then they get some tax advantages that way as well.
I like that. That is really cool.
Yeah.
Too.
So if somebody's thinking about investing in land because they're tired of being a landlord or something along those lines, what are some things they should consider before taking that dive in?
Well, they need to consider, I think, for me, I think the thing that you've got to kind of get your head around, as opposed to like other parts of real estate. So we can all agree everyone needs a house. Everyone needs a place to live, whether it's a house or an apartment, even a mobile home.
Right.
But nobody needs a piece of raw land. So essentially, you kind of have to get your head around the fact that, nobody needs this. In the same respect that 99% of what we have in our lives, you just don't need it. You want it. But I think that's the one area where you've got to really kind of just be open to the fact that, number one, you're not going to get stuck with this raw land. There is a huge market for it, but it's a leap of faith if you've never done it. And number two, that you can make it cash flow like a rental unit with all the advantages that a rental unit doesn't have, because you're not dealing with a tenant.
Well, that's good to hear. You definitely aren't dealing with tenant, especially if they're a borrower. Now, we're talking about notes and land, and you got my gears turning. If somebody was to originate a note and secure that note with land, what are some things they should they consider? Like, for example, when I look at a mortgage note, I look at the property, I look at the neighborhood. In the worst case scenario that I have to take it back, what should be something that the lender potentially should consider?
Well, okay, so it's this is sort of a niche thing, right? So I buy notes all the time for raw land, where a guy like you would pass because you don't know how to sell it. If somebody defaulted, you're like, oh gosh, now what do I do? Right?
Exactly.
So you'd go to a guy like me and you'd sell it to me 25, 30 cents on the dollar. So I'm not telling you, Kevin, what to do. I'm not giving you any hints. Just if you get a note that you don't want in land, you just come to me.
All right. I appreciate that.
I love notes just like you love notes, but it's just like any other due diligence. But for you, the main thing is, can I sell this? Right? Mm-hmm. Because when you go through that due diligence checklist, it's going to have all the things that we talked about. So then it's just the fact that, am I discounting the note properly? So I want a 60, 70% yield on my notes.
Wow.
Nice. So Mark, earlier in the example, you gave us a really good example of how you found a piece of land that had some back taxes, or, you find them these ways. Like how do you actually find those in real life? Like, do you, how do you go about finding opportunities in this area?
Right. So the best place to start is the county assessor. So they're going to give you the real property list, all the property in that county. And then we're going to scrub that list. We might do it by use code. So we're going to get rid of all the commercial property, the residential property, industrial property. And we're just going to have vacant land. Let's say the use code is VL for vacant land. Then we're going to do one more scrub, because we're pricing that list. So before we can price a list, we have to scrub it by APN number, assessor's parcel number, which is like neighborhood, which will also equate into acreage. Because if I send the 40-acre guy the same offer as the 5-acre guy, the 40-acre guy is going to send me back glitter in the mail. So we got to be really careful with how we do this stuff. And then once we price it, we're going to use a software that we created called LG Pass. And essentially, I mean, you're tech guys who invest, so you know, we can always make more money. We can't get any more time. 90% of this business is automated with software and inexpensive VAs. So I have software on the front end that'll automate the mailings. We have an API with lob.com. So they'll send out the mailings, they'll do address verification. And then the software will take you through the entire deal process all the way to the end, which will be geekpay.io, which is a set it and forget it note management system. You get your down payment, you get your monthly payments via ACH. It calculates the amortization, calculates, everything. And then it eliminates 2 annoying calls I would always get. Mark, what's my current balance? Well, they can log in and see. And Mark, can I make a prepayment this month? Well, they can log in and do it. So it allows the borrower to self-serve as well.
Nice.
So we're talking about assessing the value of the land. Is that something you talked about the comps? Well, I'm thinking, what's the equivalent for looking at it from a Zillow perspective? Do I have to go see a land broker, or is that something I could do on my own?
So this is the amazing thing about the niche and the horrible thing about the niche is no one knows. It's a very inefficient market. So comps are going to be all over the place, which is why I said take the lowest comp. So it's truly what a buyer and seller agree to. No one really knows. Now, this is this rural land that I'm talking about that I buy. Now, look, you want to buy a San Francisco infill lot? Yeah, you're going to go to the biggest, baddest land broker in town. They'll sell it for 110 cents on the dollar. That's not what we're buying.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting. You're buying land out rural.
Rural land, hour to 3 hours from the nearest city.
Nice. Any other things you look for during due diligence, especially anything that's kind of unusual or would be interesting to people who are more familiar with investing in rental houses or things like that?
I mean, if you're buying what we buy, so look, Adam, Kevin, let's be honest, right? Nobody wakes up, thinks to themselves, boy, I'd like some raw land in Iowa today, unless you live in Iowa, right? Yeah. So, number one, you got to focus on, Arizona, California, Nevada, Texas, Colorado, Washington, Nevada, Oregon, the Sunshine States, New Mexico, right? And of course, my favorite state, and I'm not just saying this to kiss up, Florida.
Oh, we have awesome swampland here.
And don't joke about swampland, because what you can do on swampland?
Build Disney.
Besides that, you can grow shiitake mushrooms. So there's a highest and best use for every piece of land.
That's awesome.
And I've never been stuck with a piece of land after all this time. And I've made some incredibly bad due diligence mistakes. I bought land on the side of a mountain in the early days. They all sell. There's literally a pig for every barn, if you price it right.
So are you seeing more people becoming interested in raw land with something like COVID-19? Because we're seeing now, according to the news, that people are kind of vacating popular metros like San Francisco, New York, and they got to be moving somewhere. And I'm thinking the people that moved further out to get away from people may be looking for more land or something along those lines. But have you seen COVID kind of impact that business?
Yeah, I mean, this has been an anomaly for me because it's just so outside the norm. It feels to me like 2006 again. We can't keep land in stock. I mean, it's just selling so fast. There's such a major demand for it. It kind of makes me nervous because it's just like, you never want to get too comfortable with that.
Right.
It's just, it doesn't feel like a normal market spike.
Sure.
So I'm throwing out 2020 as far as, the numbers are concerned, and, normal growth rates are going to be something that I want to look at, not just this anomaly. And it's terrible to say because so many people are suffering. I have a little survivor's guilt about it, but yeah, it's been a crazy year.
Indeed. Yeah, it has been. So in a normal year, are there mistakes you see that new investors make, new land investors?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake you can make in this niche is overpaying. So I'll see new land investors I gotta have landitis. Never in their lives did they have to own raw land. And now all of a sudden they get, I've got to have it. So we make our money on the buy. You got to stay disciplined on that 25 to 30 cents on the dollar, margin of safety. Because even if you have a piece of property that, for whatever reason is slow, it takes longer than 30 days to sell, you can flip it wholesale and still make 100%. No one's going to get mad at me.
Because you bought it so low and they think they're getting a home run deal.
Right. I think the other issue for newbies is just, hey, when I'm doing my due diligence, what happens if I buy in an environmental issue? And so, again, we're not buying in Pennsylvania or New Jersey or these industrial states. But if you're really worried about it, you just go to epa.gov and make sure you're not buying a Superfund site or anywhere near a Superfund site. But again, the states that I mentioned don't have that. There's one area of Nevada that we don't buy in called Churchill, Nevada, because the Air Force goes out there and bombs in the mountain ranges. So maybe don't buy there. Otherwise, you're good.
So for those who don't know, can you explain what a Superfund site is?
A Superfund site is when there is a company has basically created some type of environmental disaster on the raw land, usually it's through some kind of chemicals. And they are now the owners of the land. They have to clean it up. Whether it costs $1 million or $1 billion, they have to clean it up. Now, if they sell it to Adam and Adam buys it, Adam has to clean it up. So Adam has to be worried about that a little bit.
Interesting.
So, Mark, you obviously have tons of experience in this area, are very knowledgeable, and I know you've got some educational programs to help others, new investors, learn how to do that. Can you just tell us a little bit about that and, maybe what you do with them and what that looks like a little bit?
Yeah, for me, buying and selling raw land has been great. It's been great for, 5 people, my family. But I've never had someone who bought raw land from me, call me in tears and say, Mark, you changed my life with this land purchase. But when we get people help them get out of what I call solo economic dependency, which means if they're not working and they're not making any money, it is life-changing. And it's been the most gratifying thing for me to help people, get out of a bad job and replace their income or retire their spouse so their spouse can spend more time with the kids. Or just spend a lot more time doing what they want to do in life. We had a client recently, he's a full-time attorney, and he just replaced his income as a full-time attorney, so he went down to 3 days a week. He still likes it, but now he has options to work where he wants, when he wants, with whom he wants. And for me, to help people create that freedom through this niche has been the most gratifying thing I've done professionally. And really, I could die in peace now, at least professionally.
That's good. And I love that you have such a passion for that. And that's what we're trying to do with this podcast, as well as get people to take action in some way, shape, or form and take control of their financial journey so that if something like, another COVID happens, which I'm not hoping for, but let's say from a vulnerability perspective, if you can secure yourself financially, you feel better, more comfortable, and safer. So Mark, if people want to learn more about how to invest in land, what would you say are some of your favorite resources that got you started, or what should they be looking at?
Well, I did it the dumb way. I didn't have a mentor. I made $1 million mistakes so everybody else doesn't have to. So I think the best place to go is I've got a course. It's $97 called How to Double Your Money 30 Days or Less, a wholesaling course. I'd love to offer it to your listeners for free. So if they just go to landgeek.com/quick deals, they can see if this model resonates with them or not. And so we have tons of free resources. I have a podcast, the Art of Passive Income podcast as well. There's so much out there now.
Love it. That's awesome. Thanks so much for doing that. We'll put that stuff in the show notes, and we encourage people to definitely check out that podcast as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's I think it's 99 cents now on Kindle, Dirt Rich. is the book I wrote a couple years ago as well that walks everybody through the model.
Love that name.
It's a good introduction. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, Mark, we would not be the tech guys who invest if we didn't ask you a tech question.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's get
So, what is your favorite piece of tech that has kind of helped you take your business to the next level?
Okay, so I don't want to be self-serving and talk about my own tech. So besides those, my own tech, I honestly, like every day I'm in Zapier. Like without Zapier, I mean, if it were a person, I would just hug it every day. So I love you, Zapier. It's amazing what you can do with that thing, and the automation. And again, I live by that philosophy. I can always make more money. I can't get more time. And every day, Zapier saves me time. So I love Zapier. And then, there's so many other things. But
okay, I got one.
I don't want to overwhelm everybody.
I got a bonus follow-up tech question, and this is for the true nerds out there like me. Favorite video game when you were younger, and you can decide what genre you want it to be, but favorite video game when you were a younger person.
Okay, I don't know if you remember this. I mean, you guys are too young, actually. So, but there was this adventure game called Ultima. And I played that thing for hours, and I remember going to bed at night and like the characters would be etched into my brain. And there's like Ultima 1, Ultima 2, Ultima 3, Ultima 4. I loved Ultima.
That was PC, right?
I think that was that PC or Commodore 64? I mean, it was really old.
Yeah.
It was really great. And a lot of problem solving, and it was like Zelda before Zelda.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, like 8-bit
awesome.
Zelda. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, Mark, where can people find you if they want to learn more from the Land Geek?
TheLandGeek.com is a great place to start. TheLandGeek.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for bestowing this knowledge about land, and you got me, the gears turning for me. So thank you so much, Mark. We really appreciate all the value you brought to our listeners.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
That's it for this episode of Tech Guys Who Invest. This is Adam.
This is Kevin. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast for the latest episode updates and to receive additional investor insights to help you invest wisely and safely. You can join the TGWI Insiders community at tgwipodcast.com/subscribe. Lastly, we would love to connect with you. The best way to reach us is by sending us an email at techguyswhoinvest@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody.